All right, thank you, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and call the Transportation and Public Safety Budget Committee meeting to order. We've got a number of things that are a little bit different today. So one of our analysts has to be out of the, has prior obligations and has to leave. So I want to handle the Kansas Highway Patrol budget first. So I'd like to get a motion to consider the 2020 Kansas Highway Patrol budget to concur with the governor's, to consider concurring with the governor's budget request for fiscal year 2022 for the Highway Patrol. Is there a motion?
So
Motion by
moved.
Representative Poskin, second. Second by Representative Resman. And the airplane assets are in the governor's fiscal year 2022 budget, correct? That's where they're at. And as we've been doing with the majority of these requests, I'd like to delete the 18.1 million SGF for aircraft replacement and upgrade for fiscal year 2022 pending outcome of the agency's request for 18.1 million from the American Rescue Plan Act funds through the Spark Executive Committee. If the agency has not granted funds through the American Rescue Plan Act fund to fund the aircraft replacement upgrade, we want to recommend to the Appropriations Committee that we take this out of SGF. That would be my motion as an amendment. So we're not saying we don't support it. We're saying we do support it. We want it to come from ARPA. If they don't get it through ARPA, then we will support the request at omnibus. Okay, motion was by me. Second was by Representative Delperdang. Is that clear, Megan? If it's not
Funded through the ARPA funds.
That's right, that our committee supports the purchase. These have been hanging around for a long time. I'm ready to get this off of our plate and move on. Whether I agree with the priorities that the agency has in totality or not, if we're going to do it, this is the year to do it. So the motion was by me. Second was by Representative Delperdang. Is there any other discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries. I think I would also like to make a motion in 2022 that the committee supports the agency's request of $22.9 million from the American Rescue Plan Act Fund through the appropriate Spark Advisory Panel for the statewide interoperability communication system enhancement of $17.9 million and capital improvements to the Law Enforcement Training Academy for $5 million for fiscal year 2023. The reason I want to do it in fiscal year 2022 is that's when they're making the request. Is that appropriate, Megan? Am I thinking it correctly? I also want to note these funds are not included in the governor's recommended budget. We're not, okay. So I made the motion, second by Representative Ellis. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. Also, I want to make sure the legislature is aware that the agency has requested $9 million from the American Rescue Plan Act Fund for a new executive aircraft. I personally don't want to take a position either for or against that, but I do think that it's important for the legislature to know that it's out there, so when we come back in 2023, there's no surprise. So that's my rationale. So that would be my motion. Is there a second? Second by Representative Resman. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye. All those opposed, no. Okay. Motion carries. The next item, we all got some information right at the very end on the 3.6 million for special revenue funds for the career progression plan. I think we tried to get all of the different information that was flowing. It's my understanding, we might ask, this is a little bit not the normal way we do it, but we might ask Sherry or the superintendent to come forward in case we have any questions about the pay plan. Which one of you feels most capable to answer random questions about the pay progression plan? Thank you, Colonel Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So I believe Sherry, Ms. Mackey shared some information with me that we currently have. How many commissioned officers are you authorized for?
Well, our pass is shown 525. Again, I think I may state that I don't think we've ever reached that in time. So we've gotten close, maybe 501, somewhere in there. But 525 is what we show on the books or so, and haven't been fully funded for that as well.
And how many do we have currently?
There's 465, I believe.
465.
Yes.
For some reason, I got wrong numbers. We were talking about 660, and I was adding 60 to that. Freudian slip. Representative Delperdang, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Colonel, of that number you just gave, does that include troopers and master troopers?
That would be all of those that were in the CPP. So it's law enforcement.
Including lieutenants
Yes.
and captains, so that's everybody then?
Yes.
Okay.
And so, you know, in the budget, it says that it's a enhancement package for retention and recruitment. So I just did some really fast, dirty numbers on the number of troopers that we have and everything. I can't get to 3.6 million. Is it for other salaries in the agency also, or is it a 3-year implementation, or?
I'm going to have Sherry Mackey,
Okay.
our CFO, come and address that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. So that would also include, we're looking at the LEO parity that was recommended. We're also looking at trooper trainees and then a potential the lateral class. So that would be additional recruits or uniforms we want to bring into the mix. That's included. And I'm running the numbers right now based on what I just received to get to the 3.6. But it does include more than just our current 460 uniformed officers.
So it's executive, or it's administration salaries that wouldn't be commissioned officers?
No, sir. So it would be recruits so potential recruits, potential lateral class recruits, lateral, so it would come in. And then our current 460 that we have currently on staff uniformed does not include any administrative staff.
And we are interested in whatever the hard. It's not for multiple years or anything?
No, sir. It would move up, and then we would continue that going forward with the new pay plan once they get that new matrix. I believe we had provided you the January 9th matrix, so the latest one we had. So then it's my understanding that would be adjusted, the matrix would be adjusted. The pay would be moved for current and any coming in, any potential recruits, and then that would be the new matrix going forward.
Okay.
So you potentially have 3 different classifications. You have the law enforcement officers who will be moved into the trooper if that passes in the bill. And then you have a lateral class, and then you have a trooper trainee class.
So, and I know you've got to be dangerous when I do my research with Google and when I try to do math on my iPhone. So I did 525 times 42,000, or 525 times 80,000. So for an annual salary, just kind of trying to pick a midpoint salary. And then if we do 3.6 million, did anybody remember what number I said I had there? 3.6 million. Anyway, we'd like a better breakdown as we pursue onto this, because it looks like the math works out that the raise is about $1 million, $1.5 million. It doesn't look like it's 3.6 million.
As I'm going through and doing that, because you have different step levels, and like even with the LEOs, if you move them from that, you move them up into the trooper pay matrix, you have different steps, so you have a lot of different variances in what the pay rate is. So it's not just an average. So I'll get that to you. I'm working on it now.
Right. And also, though, and I'm not arguing with you, but they were already on a step progression plan. You know, like, for instance, I think when we did the Master Tech Trooper, it looked like we moved them up one pay grade, and we moved them back a half to get to that 2.6 number, you know, because each pay grade is around 5%. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, correct. It's like every 3 years, 1 year, then third year. Yeah. So.
Confusing. Yes, go ahead, Representative Delperdang.
I wanted to throw a question while you're here, but I'm just going to read a few sentences out of the budget thing. But Governor recommends 3.6 million all from KHP funds for plan to alter the agency's career progression plan. The fund will be used to support recruitment and compensation of troopers and law enforcement. The part I'm hung up on is the recruitment. Is this all going to wages? Is this going to advertising? Is this going to marketing? Where is it going?
Mr. Chairman, and Senator, Representative, it's my understanding it's all going into the pay matrix. There is not, for advertising, that we're using funds currently in the KHP budget that would support those activities. The 3.6 million goes to the pay matrix and to move that pay matrix.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sherry. All right. Anybody else? Oh, hey, Sherry, I'm sorry. Representative Delperdang keeps asking me a question, and I do not know the answer, and I keep wanting to act like I do. But if this pay plan is initiated, when would the troopers, when would these raises go into effect? In your best guess?
So it would be fiscal year '23 is what, because they had the increase for fiscal year '22 that we just enacted in January of this year. So it's my understanding, and the Colonel could correct me if he knows something different, but it would be fiscal year '23.
Right, but would it be December 31st of 2022, or would it be July 1 of 2022, or June 30th of 2023? And are you guys in negotiations with the Troopers Association? Does that enter into this?
I'll have to let the Colonel answer some of those questions,
Okay.
sorry.
Excuse me, I believe it would take effect at the start of the fiscal year '23, is where I believe with it. Now, what we've done with this is it started at the start of the first of the year, January, such as what we've done right now. That's why it goes in. But I believe, I could be wrong, I believe it will start at the first of the fiscal year '23.
So according to this, if you're a Master Tech Trooper, you would have got approximately 2.5% on January 9th. You would get 2.5%, we hope, around July 1st. And then if you were part of any of the governor's global thing, you would get that also.
I believe that's, don't hold me to that right there, but I know from the 2.5 and whatever it would increase would go in for the fiscal year, start of fiscal year. Now, how that would go and play or so, I'm not quite sure. It's a little foggy on
Right.
that. Because it's gone back and forth or so.
Right,
But
right. We don't know how the global is going to be implemented. Even we don't know
Right.
what the global is going to look like. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions? I know we've got a lot of emails from different troopers from across the state since it was released. Anybody else have questions at this time? Okay. So that's in fiscal year 2023. So let's go ahead and wrap up 2022 unless there's further discussion. Is there further discussion about the budget for 2022? Have I left anything out, Megan? You're supposed to take care of me today, even if you have to leave early. All right. Representative Resman, would you like to make a motion to approve fiscal year 2022 per the governor's recommendation as amended? Is there a second? Motion by Representative Resman, second by Representative Poskin. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. So now let's move on to fiscal year 2023. And we'll start with the governor's recommendation and make estimates to that. In light of some of the conversation we've had, I'd like to, and again, this is just so that everybody in the audience knows, we've been instructed by appropriations to remove all pay plans and then for them to be reconsidered again when we consider the governor's 5% global enhancement. So that's why we're doing this. And also it allows us to make some comments as far as what the committee's wishes are. So I'd like to make a motion that we delete 3.6 million all special revenue funds for the career progression plan and decrease the transfer from the state highway fund in the same amount for fiscal year 2023. We review the addition of this funding in the Committee of House Appropriations as part of the discussion of the global 5% increase recommended by the governor. I want to also consider at the time that we have the discussion on the global 5% increase, I want to consider 2.5% increase for master troopers, lieutenants, captains, and majors. If you guys have looked at it, the trainees, they got an 18% raise. The troopers got a 10% raise, I believe. And then most of the ones above that only got a 2.3 or 2.4% raise. And part of my rationale about this is very often when we do appropriations and we do a global across the board thing, if there was a pay progression plan for an agency, sometimes we inadvertently exempt the agency. I want to shine light on this. Oh, I also want to add words. We want to consider 2.5% for master troopers, lieutenants, captains, and non-commissioned personnel. Also, where's the language, Megan, on the bringing us parity for the LEOs? We had that at one time. I don't see it in this. About spending it first.
Oh, correct. If the funds are deleted, I believe we could still add language that if they're added back in, we could have the pay matrix parity be a part of the ability for the agency to receive those funds.
Okay. I've had a lot of legislators speak to me about they want pay parity for the LEOs, the Capitol Police. I don't know how all of you feel about, but I think that's very important. The time's come to do that. So I want parity for the LEO classifications as part of my motion also. Okay, second by Representative Ellis. Are you clear enough on what I'm trying to do? Megan?
Yeah, I can read you some language if you'd like.
Yeah.
I pulled it up. Add language requiring the agency to implement salary and wage parity within the same pay matrix between law enforcement officers and troopers of the Kansas Highway Patrol by July 1st, 2023, and stating that if salary and wage parity is not implemented, the 3.6 million added for the career progression plan for fiscal year 2023 will be lapsed.
Okay. So we're going to add that onto the part where we're making sure that we consider the 2.5% for the master troopers, lieutenants, captains, and also consider raises for the non-commissioned personnel. I don't want anybody to get left out just because we did a enhancement plan. Okay. So does that change all right with my second? Okay. Is there any other discussion? Representative Delperdang.
Approximate number of how many LEOs are in the building, or this would affect?
I've had that number. Does anybody have that? I can dig through here. There's one thing that's a little bit on this. I had a conversation with some entities. There's nine of the guys that pull over the trucks. What's the name of that classification? MCI. So there's 9 of those, and then how many Capitol Police are there? 24. So it'd be 33 total. Okay. And my understanding is the MCI program's being phased out over time, and we're assigning those to regular troopers. So.
Question,
Sure.
if I may, I just want to clarify in my mind. I'm good with what you just said. I believe we got some here that I'm going to refer to as security. They're non-gun toting. Where do they fall?
Safety and security officers, I think they're separate from the highway patrol. They've got a separate pay grade and pay plan.
I believe
But
they
maybe Colonel Jones would like to come make sure he's the authority on this.
I believe they wear highway patrol shirts, so I just want to clarify it.
Thank you, appreciate that. Yes, you have basically two classifications that are here at the Capitol. You have the Capitol area, Capitol Police, and then you have the Capitol area guards. Those are non-commissioned officers there, and they are on a different pay plan than the CPP.
Do they report to you or do they report to another agency?
They're
They
part
do.
of the highway patrol as well.
Now, would they be part of the recruitment and enhancement pay plan possibly?
The pay
Right.
plan is for law enforcement officers, as I would say, those that carry a weapon.
So we need to make sure people like that don't get left out as we're dealing with this.
Yes.
So help me.
You were correct when you said motor carriers, and because when you say law enforcement officers, there's troopers and law enforcement officers there. So that classification includes the motor carrier inspectors as well as Capitol Police officers.
Other questions, discussion? Huh? I feel like I've been working on this budget for 7 years now. Okay, thank you, sir. All right. All right, any further discussion? Representative Delperdang.
Just a general one, I don't think it involves him, but again, back to the Highway Patrol 23 budget plan. It was on page 11. Did we clarify the second line where it was aircraft operations under Governor 2020, or no, Agency 2023? It looked like it was a $20 million error. And I just want to know, is that an error in my own mind, or did we really work that through?
What page are you
I'm
on?
on page 11, and it's line number 2 in the table.
Go ahead, Megan.
I believe the confusion is that the agency's 2023 budget, at the time this document was made, the time the document was made was when the agency's original budget was submitted. And at that time, the agency did include the enhancement for the law enforcement aircraft in fiscal year 23. Since the governor has moved that to 22,
Right.
they've since changed their mind on that, but at the time this was written, this is reflecting the agency's original request.
But we don't need to make any alterations to this document or anything. We know the real number then. Okay, that's all I was asking.
Any other questions? All right, so I need a motion then to concur with the governor's recommendations for the Kansas Highway Patrol for fiscal year 2023 as amended. Motion by Representative Poskin, second by Representative Resman. Any further discussion? Sure, go ahead, Representative Resman.
I'm a little confused about the 2.5% that we authorized or we recommended last year. Where does that fit into this?
Do you want me to try to answer that, or should we have Sherry come up and try to answer that? Or we could even have Megan try to answer it. Would you like to answer it, Megan? Or do you want me to have Sherry come up?
I would like the agency to back me up and make sure I'm correct, but my understanding is that the 2.5% is what is included in the executive directive that was received, that added to the steps and pay grade. So it's been implemented. It was in fact implemented in January, this January.
And can you add on to that, Sherry, about the fact that it's part of agreement you have with the troopers?
Yep, Mr. Chairman, so that was part of an agreement. They got a first year and a third year, so that third year was implemented. The agency was awarded through the legislature for 2021, about $1.1 million for an increase, that first year increase. 2022, they had an additional increase, and it was a little over $2 million. And the matrix was moved that amount, so that the increase went into effect. Now we have the 3.6 million that would start for fiscal year 23. So that 2.5 for the last increase that was approved last session went into effect January 9th because they're waiting on the governor's directive.
Yeah, we've got a document that kind of lines through that. We've got a lot of paper on this. Any other discussion? If not, all of those in favor of approving the fiscal year 2023 per the governor's recommendation as amended signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Okay, motion carries. All right. Next, let's move on to corrections. And we're going to start with the governor's rec for 2022. And before we delve too far into 2022, the agency's made a request that we add to fiscal year 2023, 625,761 SGF to demolish the former minimum security honor camps at El Dorado and Toronto, and language authorizing such demolition for fiscal year 2023. These honor camps ceased operation in 2009. Would someone from the agency like to come to the mic and introduce themselves and stand for questions on this? Keith, go ahead. And can you just give us a brief overview on how this came about? You know, I know you've got adequate funding in your budget probably to do it anyway, but.
Certainly. So these two units are located at Toronto's Lake and El Dorado Lake, and they're former minimum units that we closed back around 2009. No longer suit our purposes. They're too far away and too small of a unit to be economically efficient. They're minimum security beds that really don't need have much use for. And these buildings are in pretty poor condition, just need to be demolished. The funding would be coming from the Correctional Institutions Building Fund, not the State General Fund. And we are needing just authorization in the appropriations bill, granting us legislative authority to go ahead and demolish those structures.
We need to take it from the CBIF instead. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? I remember when we had those real bed shortage issues, I think we tried to talk you guys into using these facilities. And some of the information we got was they just don't work. I mean, they're functionally obsolete. So, okay. Anybody else have any questions? We'll bring that up. Now, does that need to be in the fiscal year 2023 budget or the fiscal year 2022 budget?
Fiscal 23.
Okay. Representative Ellis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What is going to happen to the land there?
The land that they are on belongs to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Keith. Okay, so let's start again with the governor's recommendation for fiscal year 2022. So for fiscal year 2022, we discussed with the agency ARPA requests, and one of those ARPA requests that they've decided to work on is the 6.7 million SGF for the Pathways for Success initiative, and that provides technical education equipment at correctional facilities. We hope we can make that through the ARPA process. So for the fiscal year 2022 budget, I would like to add language to lapse the 6.7 million SGF for the Pathways for Success initiative, which provides technical education equipment at correctional facilities. If monies from the American Rescue Plan Act Fund are available in 2022. So if they get the money, we're going to lapse it from SGF. If they don't get the money, they can still move forward with this project. Is there a second for my motion? Second by Representative Ressman. Is there any discussion? Does everybody understand this is an enhancement that was approved? And we're just trying to find a more efficient way to fund it. So if there's no further questions or discussion, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. I think also the committee, if you remember correctly, they had a number of things that they're requesting ARPA funds through. They're not going to request SGF. I think it's good, or I hope it's helpful for their process if we note their application for those funds and signify or show the committee's support for those. So also for fiscal year 2022, I'd like to make a motion that the committee recommends the agency request $445.6 million from the American Rescue Plan Act Fund through the appropriate Spark Advisory Panel for construction of a new Hutchinson Correctional Facility for $296.3 million and campus or career campus centers at 9 correctional facilities for $149.3 million. These career campus centers would provide facilities to support education and skills building programs for inmates. So we're not going to put these in the SGF. Just if they can get the ARPA money, we support those. I do want to do those in 2022 because that's when the request is going to go through. So, do I have a second? Huh? None of our money. And we're not going to recommend any of our money. If they get it, fine. We're supportive of moving forward. Hutch Correctional Facility is functionally obsolete. It's going to need to be addressed sometime, but if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Okay. Any other discussion? Thinking hard? Go ahead.
Does this meet the criteria for these funds?
If it doesn't meet the criteria, they're not going to give it to them. So the agency must assume that it can meet some criteria. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. All right. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. Okay. I think that's all for fiscal year 2022. So is there a motion to approve the governor's recommendation as amended for fiscal year 2022? Motion by Representative Resman, second by Representative Poskin. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. Moving on to fiscal year 2023. Again, this is a little bit different because they already have the raises. But I make a motion for fiscal year 2023 that the committee notes that certain job classifications in the KDOC system receive significant temporary pay increases through fiscal year 2023 as part of the 24/7 pay initiative. The agency currently does not have a timeframe for termination of these increases. The committee requests the House Committee on Appropriations consider such information during deliberation on the statewide 5% pay plan increase. Is there a second? Second by Representative Ressman. Is there any discussion? Again, all we want to do is, we've got these big raises. We don't have any time frame. They're going to ask me what the time frame is on those. We don't know yet. Also, I would like the agency sometime between now and when we do that global 5% to make sure we have discussions about how some of your employees that aren't covered by that pay plan are covered. So, any other discussion? Okay. If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. An issue that Merle brought to my attention, and I believe he has support from the agency on this, is so they get CBIF as part of gaming funds, and it's 10% of the gaming revenues that we get, but it's capped at $5 million. So currently those gaming funds are in excess of $70 million. There's no number of other agencies that get part of these gaming funds. It's not just the Correctional Building Institution Fund or whatever the acronym it is stands for. But I know the agency requested an enhancement that the governor denied in their budget to increase the amount of funding because about $20 million worth of SGF or $20 million approximately of gaming revenues go back into SGF. So for instance, if they just got a flat 10%, it would be $7 million, but they're currently capped at 5. And it's been that way since 1997, so there's been no increase for inflation. There's been no increase for increased costs. So I would like the committee to recommend that the Legislative Budget Committee study the distribution of monies from the State Gaming Revenue Fund during the 2022 legislative interim. Monies from this fund are used by multiple agencies to include KDOC for repair and rehabilitation of correctional facilities. The committee notes that the appropriation for KDOC has been fixed at approximately $5 million annually since 1997, and that does not account for the increased cost of materials and revenues. There are around $20 million in gaming revenues currently lapsing to the SGF currently. So that would be my motion. Is there a second? Second by Representative Weigel. Does everybody kind of understand? I know that enhancement kind of slipped through. Merle brought it to my attention, and we're not saying that they're going to do anything, but 20 million of it is going to the SGF, so we wouldn't be taking any money from another interested party. Okay. If everybody understands the motion, if there's no further discussion, then all those in favor of the motion say aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries. As we discussed a little bit earlier, and Randy, I believe Keith brought us up today, the agency has requested that we add $625,761 to come from the CBIF fund to demolish former minimum security honor camps at El Dorado and Toronto. And give them language authorizing such demolition for fiscal year 2023. These honor camps ceased operations in 2009. So that would be my motion. Huh? To demolish them? I think we're talking about Representative Hauser is going to bring a big old cat in there and
I used to work with those guys when I was in college.
that's what they asked for.
Down there like ice water too.
I'm sure they'll come back for an additional appropriation if they find out they were wrong.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, the
Yes.
agency, I'm sorry, the
Go ahead.
agency did mention that they were requesting this from the Correctional Institutions Building Fund. The Correctional Institutions Building Fund in FY 2023 will have an ending balance of $116,000. So the ending balance that is available, based off of the governor's recommendation as it currently stands, would not have $625,000 available. So the adjustment could either, you could either look at appropriating the remaining balance of 116, or this could be a partially from the state general fund and partially from the CIBF, but
You don't think they've got enough money to do it. Keith, do you want to address that, or do you disagree with that?
I didn't quite hear that part of the discussion here. I think there was a question about the cost and why it's so high. Okay. On that front, it's regarding the federal regulations that we have to follow to meet their requirements, that it be returned back to the natural state once it's demolished, and there's lead paint and asbestos abatement that needs to be done as well as part of those projects.
And then Merle said there's not 625,000 in that fund, that you only have about 116,000.
And that'd be the available cash balance in that as of today. Okay.
that is what is, that's what would be available, the unspent balance in that fund based off of appropriations in the governor's recommendation. So that is what's not obligated at this point. Otherwise the others have been.
I think the bigger issue for the agency is just the having the legal authority to go ahead and demolish those funds. If we were able to get an additional appropriation that partially covers that and use rehab and repair funds out of our $5 million annual allocation to do that, or we utilize other special revenue funds to do the work. We just need the legal authority to go ahead and demolish the buildings more than anything else.
You're going to be able to find the money in your existing budget to do it, or do we need to appropriate funds?
If there's 116,000, then that's all that's available in the CIBF. That would go a long ways helping us getting this project done, and then we could look at other options internally to see what we can do to try and get this done in the FY 23.
Sure.
Right, so based off of the governor's recommendation, Mr. Chairman, there would be $116,896 for an ending balance in FY 2022 from the Correctional Institutions Building Fund. So that's based off of revenue projections that were done this year. So that could fluctuate if we, by next year when they do additional revenue estimating, but based off of the current revenue, that's the amount that, and this is an appropriated fund, so the committee has full authority to appropriate these funds.
So in your opinion, what's the motion need to read? Does it need to say to come from CBIF or CIBF funds and SGF as, well, we've got to actually appropriate the SGF funds if we got to do SGF, don't we?
Right, the committee would have to make a recommendation if the committee wanted to provide the full amount that's requested, 625, you would have to recommend to add, let me do the math really quick.
Do you have adequate SGF and authority to spend it?
We would need additional SGF to do this project in full.
Okay. Do you know what your cost savings will be a year when you don't have to maintain and watch over it anymore. Have you looked at that?
I don't have that on me. We can get that for you.
Okay.
So my quick math tells me that if you wanted to provide resources, the full amount that the agencies requested, you would have to add 508,865 SGF and 116,896 CIBF to demolish the former correctional facilities and add language, so adding a proviso authorizing the agency to do so.
Okay. So that's my motion. Mike, look happier. All right. Second by Representative Poskin. Any discussion? Not other? Oh, go ahead. No, we're going to spend the 625,000. Part of it's going to come from the CBIF or CIBF, and the other is going to come from SGF. 25. Yep. Sometimes you got to clean up your messes, unfortunately. Okay. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, say aye. All those opposed, no. Okay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion carries. All right. Committee, I don't think I have anything else for the 2023 Department of Corrections budget. Does anybody else have anything? I'm just seeing if anybody else has anything for corrections. This is the time for the surprises. Yeah. Representative Weigel? Yeah.
Along these lines, when you're talking about the 625,000 to demolish these two facilities that have not been used for quite a number of years, correct? I mean, they're just sitting empty. Are they like out in the woods? I mean, is that where they're at, or because I'm kind of familiar with the Toronto Lake area.
That's correct. It's right near the lakes.
Okay. What are these buildings made out of?
It's general construction, masonry, cinder block, wood walls.
And if I could just, I know we're running. So there must have been savings that occurred once the state stopped using those facilities, stopped taking inmates out there, correct?
Savings were realized, these are part of closures that occurred around 2008 and 2009 when there was pretty significant budget cuts across the state from the recession at the time. So all those savings would have been lapsed out of our budget at that point. We have a little bit of residual expenditures related to some utilities we have on, and the occasional staff going out there to check on things, but it's pretty minimal expenses we're incurring at this point.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So is there a motion to approve the governor's recommendations for our Department of Corrections for fiscal year 2023 as amended? Motion by Representative Poskin. Is there a second? Charlotte, you're being off. Representative Esau, you're keeping your head down. Is there a second? Second by Representative Ressman. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. All right, let's move on to the next budget. Next budget is Kansas Department of Transportation. We had some language from the Department of Transportation about item that they're going to buy. Here it is, the new pavement management system. Okay. So let's open up discussion on fiscal year 2022 budget, and let's talk about the work from the governor's recommendation. I'll just start out with the things that I have already. The agency is going to has submitted a request to Spark for $550,000 for the estimated upfront costs of a new pavement management system. They talked about it a little bit in their presentation to us. It'll allow them to more effectively gauge how good their pavement and their base are. And so I would like us to support, to give our support for this request. Is there a second? Second by Representative Poskin. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. With that, I'd like to have a little conversation about some of their wage compression issues, but I think we should hold that until fiscal year 2023. So is there any other items that we want to consider in the fiscal year 2022 budget? If not, is there a motion to approve the governor's recommendation as amended for fiscal year 2022? Motion is by Representative Ressman, second by Representative Esau. And by the way, you know you are famous because you brought up the online thing to report your potholes. Good deal. Anyway, all right. Second was by Representative Esau. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. As we discuss fiscal year 2023, one of the things that has really frustrated me as we've dealt with this is we have these wage compression issues. I feel like we've got some positions that are out of whack. Hopefully we can address some of those when we go through and we do the global 5% discussion and appropriations. But I don't know if you guys have noticed it, but we've got all kinds of problems. And it seems like sometimes the greasy wheel gets or the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And I know that I had a conversation, I think, with members of research today about something that they did in 2010, and it was called under market analysis. Dylan, could you just talk to the committee a little bit about that? I'm not always the most verbal.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, if I'm permitted to reveal our conversations. So you had asked some questions about some pay adjustments that started back in like 2009, where the legislature commissioned the Hay study as a sort of a pay plan study that looked at the entire state government and tried to figure out where there was, where there was places where state employees were falling behind, where there was not as much of an issue, and sort of come up with some new ways to deal with state employee pay issues. And the legislature, in order to implement that study, created the State Employee Pay Plan Oversight Commission. And it was that commission which was then sort of oversaw annual distributions of money. They recommended to the State Finance Council to do sort of implementations of those based upon that pay plan study. It was a multi-phase implementation over about 5 years is the way it sort of worked out. And so they kind of broke up different sections of government, but it was all based upon sort of this study, this Hay study that was originally done in order to be able to look at where, what are some of the issues across state employee pay.
And I get real frustrated when we look at these pay deals because I think we've seen when other people give one group a raise, we create a problem somewhere else, and we're doing this piecemeal. I'd love to do something on this engineering tech because I think it would help the department, but I'm also aware that if I, in my infinite wisdom, do something major, I might be creating 4 or 5 problems in addition to that. And it seemed like the legislature worked closely then with the Department of Administration to determine those below market positions. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, that's correct. So this Hay study sort of laid out the plan, as it were, but then the Department of Administration Division of Personnel Services came up with the under market studies that were then passed on to the State Employee Pay Plan Commission to review. And at once the point they approved those, and after they were done with their questions, that's how that recommendation came about.
So with that, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Dylan on this? He's been around a long time. These are difficult difficult issues. He must have been awful young when he started. I think Representative Poskin has a note that she'd like to add to the fiscal year. Have we passed did we pass the 2022? We should do this in the 2023. So let's pass the 2022 as amended, and then we'll add this to the 2023. Is there a motion to approve the governor's rec? Thank you. For 2022 for the Department of Transportation, Representative Resman moved it. Yeah, you seconded it. Yeah. Well, someone told me no. I thought, that's right, you seconded it. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. We did for sure now. So now let's go to fiscal year 2023. And I think Representative Poskin has a note to add to fiscal year 2023's budget.
I'd like to make a motion that we add the following language. The committee notes that KDOT is challenged to retain and recruit qualified employees due to discrepancies in pay. The committee received testimony that private contractors are regularly hired by the agency at rates substantially in excess of the salary of KDOT employees who are performing the same work. The committee recommends that the House Appropriations Committee consider commissioning an under-market pay study for all state employees to be delivered to the legislature during the 2023 legislative session prior to finalization of the budget.
And could we add some little language on that to clarify? I don't want this to be perceived that this is just a KDOT problem, that this is, that we're using KDOT here as an example, not that it's anything specific to that agency. I don't want people to feel like there's a problem there that doesn't exist across the board.
I agree. Maybe adding language at KDOT is an example of what we have seen consistently throughout our budgets. Yes. Perfect.
Yes, yes.
Teamwork.
So, Dylan, Representative Esau can help you with your wordsmithing on that. She had it figured out perfectly, I think. So is there a second for Representative Poskin's motion? Oh, Representative Esau's on a roll now. She got the second. Okay. Is there any discussion of the motion? And again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to address those under market positions, and also, hopefully as part of that, as it matures, we can take into account certain compression issues that we're trying to cure. Okay. All right. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries. Are there any other amendments to the governor's recommendation for 2023 for KDOT? Okay. Is there a motion from Representative Resman to approve the 2023 KDOT budget per the governor's recommendation as amended?
As a matter of fact, there is.
Okay. Is there a second? Second by Representative Esau. Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Okay. Motion carries. All right. Thank you very much, committee. We are through with our work for this session that's scheduled for us to meet our budgets. I really do appreciate everybody staying. There were a lot of nights that we were here until 5:30 or 6, going through all of these pages. There may be some opportunities for us to come back and review things as they go through the process, but I do want to thank you. I want to thank Susan for her work this year. You've done a great job, Susan, and I really appreciate you. And I also want to thank Merle. Merle had to step up, as we all know. Our prior analyst has some medical issues that they're dealing with, and Merle had to add me to his list of responsibilities. And so thank you for your patience working with me. And again, thank you to all of you. I feel really good about the committee. I just want to thank you for hanging in there week after week. So with that, we're adjourned.